most of us who've been here know the KC-135s, which are the current tankers that do the refueling out of Pease, have been around since the 1950s. There is a new tanker in the works, the 46A, and the question is, where are those new tankers who refuel flights going to be located? Senator Ayotte and I have been making the case that we need a process that's very transparent when it comes to the criteria of how those decisions are going to be made. And in fact, one of the really fun things is that occasionally she and I will be able to double team witnesses before the Armed Services Committee. So she will speak or I will speak, and then one or the other of us will go next. And
we're witnesses really like that.
Yeah. So we're able to very clearly make the point that we want to make for New Hampshire. But as we look at where these tankers should be located, we think there are some real advantages that we have here at Pease. We have an integrated active duty and guard presence here at Pease in terms of our 157th refueling unit. We have one of the longest runways, the longest runway on the East Coast, I think, except for where they land the shuttle in Florida. We have a very skilled workforce here at Pease. So, and we're on a direct flight route overseas where the planes have to go. But one of the concerns that I have, and I think Senator Ayotte shares this, is that in the proposal that's been put forward by the Air Force for where their cuts are going to come from, that are cuts to comply with the current reductions that are a result of the debt agreement we came up with, not the ones that are coming up, but the ones that are in process, the $487 billion that Senator Ayotte talked about. Those are disproportionately on the Air Guard. And when you look at the cost of a person operating in the Air Guard versus an active duty, it's much more efficient to have somebody trained in the Air Guard to do the work. So I'm very concerned, and I think we have to watch that very closely, and we've raised concerns with the Air Force about this, that those cuts disproportionately affect the Guard, and we think that's a real concern as we look at our future here at Pease. But again, I think we've got a great case to make. We just need to make sure that the Air Force is going to be transparent about their process, and we're going to be able to see how that's being done. And if that's done in a fair way, if it's transparent, if we can see it, we think we come out at the top in this country.
I would just add to what Senator Shaheen said. One important component, just thinking about timing. So the Air Force will announce in the next 2 months what the criteria will be for basing this new refueling tanker. And the reason it's important, you know, we're Eisenhower era tankers. They're excellent. It's important also, we've got an amazing group of people that work in the 157 in terms of pilot experience. We have, last year in 2011, our Guard had the highest utilization rate of all of the country for our Guard. I mean, that's how good our guys are and gals. So this, having the new tanker is critical to preserving Pease and to making sure that we have the very best going forward. The timing will be, the Air Force will announce in the next 2 months what the criteria is. By the end of this summer, we'll know who is slated to get the initial tankers, and then it'll be a couple of years till the initial tankers are actually based. One thing that Senator Shaheen and I have been pushing is making sure that the initial basing of the tankers is done concurrently between the Guard and the active duty, because we don't want the Air Force just to base all of the new tankers in the active duty piece. Why? Because we would not have been able to fight the conflicts we've fought in Iraq and Afghanistan without our Guard capacity. So just as a matter of common sense in terms of where we need capacity, it's important that they concurrently base, number one. It's also important that they take this objective criteria into account, because hands down, objectively, we're in a great place, just like with our shipyard. It's not just, we don't need politics to do this. Objectively, our yard unit should win, just like objectively, our shipyard needed to stay where it was based on the merits of what was being done there. So that's why we're pushing that. One thing I did want to make you aware of, because I think it's very important, I mentioned this across the board cuts. I have a proposal out there to come up with alternative, I've got a proposal of alternative spending reductions to stop those. I think we have to do that before the end of the year, not only for our shipyard, for our overall national security, but also for Pease and for this new tanker. I had the chief of the Air Force before the Armed Services Committee, I believe Senator Shaheen was there as well, and asked him, well, what happens if this across-the-board cuts happen to our military, sequestration? The KC-46A contract, he told me, will be broken. So that's how important this is, that we get this right. And one of the worries I have about it is that we've got to do it before the end of the year, because there's so much going on in this lame duck session at the end of the year. I don't feel that we should allow our military in this important issue to be caught up in that. We've always had, national security has always been, I think, a very strong bipartisan issue. So I'd like to see us think in advance, which would be nice, in Congress, and sit down and resolve this sooner rather than later.